What's up, workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're talking about 10 million subscribers and our 1-year anniversary in this episode of Community Feedback. So, let's talk about you.
Verde. Congrats on the big 1 year. Thank you so much. There were some comments in there that took that a little bit further and assumed that maybe that was like our personal anniversary or something. No. No.
You gotta watch how Chris and Brian met and how Work the Game got started, because it goes into the history of how long we've been, I guess, playing video games together.
But 1 year of posting videos as two guy friends, both happily married. Thank you for asking. Not to each other. I personally...
This is going to become like an internet thing. Like, they are secretly married. Like, the wives are just like placeholders. Anyway.
It's a Texas thing.
It is.
I'm personally waiting on getting the update. The number of players waiting for the quest. Yeah, a few more months for it to calm down. Final Fantasy is great, but I may not come back till September. Stormblood has had an overwhelming response.
Huge.
So to hear that there are people out there who are saying, you know what, it wasn't horribly smooth coming out of the gate. Because it wasn't.
Nope.
They kind of tied their shoes together and
said, run!
and then it had, there were some DDoS issues. And it's just been one thing after another, It's interesting to think that there could be even more people waiting for something like 4.1.
It's actually probably sometimes the smarter thing to do, because I know a lot of people like, oh, I'm going to take time off for early access. And it's like, and it's unfair to just because you take time off for work or whatever, and you go in and you can't play, and it's expected, but at the same time it shouldn't happen, but it does, and it's not like game specific. But some games have smooth rollouts and launches. And so it is this, sometimes it's just better to say, you know what? I know that in 2 months, not going to be an issue. I know in 2 weeks, not going to be an issue. It's just a matter of how you can battle that hype. And the downside is that for people who got burned by that early access, sometimes they're like, I'm done. I'm not coming back.
They're not coming back.
And it's
they'll find something else. And they'll be happy with that other game, and they won't leave it. There's some real advantages to playing early on. Queue times can be at all-time lows. The ability to make money on the market can be crazy.
Huge opportunity.
There's, things like Ixion and stuff. If you wait too long, there's going to be a window where there's not enough people doing Ixion, but you're not yet able to solo him, and that mount will be impossible to get in that middle tier. On the other hand, it takes less horns now, so congrats on you for waiting.
Yeah.
So... I don't know. It would be nice to know that there's people that will come back in that kind of September, October timeframe, because I think there's also a wave of people who are the opposite. They only follow the hype. So they're going to play this game now, and then in September, October, when we start to see the fall and winter releases, they're going to jump to those games. And then they're going to jump to the spring games, and then in 2 years, we'll get them back for the next expansion.
And there is absolutely nothing wrong with this approach. I think everybody should play the games that bring them joy, that it should be a form of joy and entertainment. Not that you can't put some work into it, not that there's not going to be a grind, and that it's not in and of itself worthy and it brings that kind of value to it. But the player I worry most about is the player that just grinds and gets to a point where they are so burnt out that they're like, no.
And they don't have other games or other communities because they haven't had time. So there's nowhere to go.
It can be very isolating.
I can always dive into... My game night friends have moved because game night's kind of been in this weird mix where we're kind of done with Titanfall 2, but the next game we want to play isn't out yet. And so we've kind of been diving back into D3. And so as I've started to burn out on Final Fantasy, just need a little bit of a break. D3 is so good. And it's not so good that I wish I'd never stopped playing. It's just good after a break.
And you already own it. And that's the thing. It's like,
this is not 10 million players only game, Final Fantasy. We all own multiple games. We all probably have, what do you call it, your library of shame?
My library of shame.
Just all the games that he owns that
I have not beaten. And so
we haven't metaphorically even taken the plastic wrap off. They're sitting in the downloads folder, or
it's like, the Steam sales and stuff. Like, you're like, I bought all those games, and when am I going to play them? And I'm itching right now. Like, I've been just like, okay, and so I've told myself, like, no, I own these games. I need to go back and I need to work through my pile of shame so that I can.
I took a stream a couple Fridays ago and just started playing games for gold that I just kind of hoarded because they were free and they looked decent. I felt so much better because many of them were terrible. Yeah. They were so bad. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. All this time I felt so bad about all these great games I've been ignoring. Turns out they're not great. So I haven't been ignoring anything. So I feel like I am playing the best game I could be playing right now.
The other side of the coin is that if you're also a player, and so this isn't for you specifically, Garibade, but it's more that for the player who's like, gosh, I am feeling burnt out. Like you've maybe taken a couple of jobs to 70, etc. And you're like, well, what else do I do now? You know, honestly, I would say take a break. You know, 4.1 is not out yet. And now might be a really good time to step away and check out maybe some other games in your library.
Other Final Fantasy games.
Or other Final Fantasy. Like they released 12, and that's one of the things I mentioned to play. I recently reinstalled Final Fantasy 11, and I put out a Twitter poll. So let me know if you want me to stream some 11. I have not been back in 7 years. It will be like training wheels all over again for that game. But it's important to go and kind of think on that. So there's nothing wrong with waiting until September. We're looking forward to having you back. And anybody else who's interested in coming back at that time, or heck, even coming into the game at that time. People are like, new players are always flooding in the game. And it's exciting. It's one of the reasons why I think the game is so successful, because it's built off of make sure that new blood's coming in.
Yep. So thank you, Gilverde, and on to the next one.
All right. So Joint Johnson, I love the name. It just flows right off the tongue. I can actually say it, which is really, up for me. Points if I can pronounce your name correctly.
He pronounces it Johnson.
All right. So does anybody know a real player base who's actually playing the game? I see on Steam charts 12 to 13,000 people per day, and I don't think PS4 has the same amount of people. And so this kind of ties into a general theme. Why don't companies release these numbers?
What is that number? 10 million is just a number. They didn't even clarify the 10 million.
Right. It's like they were logged in playing at the same time.
I have 10 million at something, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you don't quantify it, it's not. Is that unique people that have ever played the game? Is that number of copies sold? And if so, does it count that I bought ARR, Heaven's Word, Stormblood, and then I own multiple versions of each? Because
does it count free trial players? Does it count people?
They said it did not count free trial.
Well, yeah, but the concept though is it active?
But if I buy the game and I take the one free month, does that count?
Yeah,
do I have to pay for a month?
I would assume
pay for 1 month and then I never play again.
I don't know. Count? My assumption would be just buy and have logged in, and so.
And in theory, that makes this the second largest MMO. But where are WoW's numbers? Why doesn't Xbox? Why do any of these people not release numbers?
My thought is that there's no value. There's no value. There's nothing that's gonna make that seem good.
Stock market doesn't care.
No, not at all.
Investors don't care.
The investors care about the daily active users, maybe not the total amount.
The companies that get bought and sold, that all takes place behind closed doors.
Oh yeah,
so they don't release why they pay the amount they pay for.
Yeah, the only value is that I guess more for bragging rights at the end of the day. The players my game's bigger than your game or something like that. But the real thing is that I think the root of it. The question is that will Final Fantasy continue to be around? The same thing with WoW. It's this. You look at any MMO. Is this game worth investing my time and money and effort into if in a couple of weeks or a couple of months it's just going to go free to play? And we've well gone beyond that. So there's no incentive or benefit for Yoshi P to release those numbers because we're going to interpret it in any way possible. I'm more positive, and so I would interpret any numbers really well. Somebody else might interpret it that the game is dying, and that
if that's counting Final Fantasy XI's numbers, I mean, you could be talking about how many years? All of a sudden, 10 million is not that good,
right? Over so the course
somebody
of
else
time.
Could market against that.
Yeah, and we haven't received any news on it, but Final Fantasy XI is the most profitable Final Fantasy that for Square Enix that we know of. I would assume 14 has recouped that, and they're with the huge player base that 14 has, that's really quite extensive. Yoshi P, when he launched ARR, he launched it at a budget to be able to release the patches that they release, to be able to support the servers at 400,000 players subscribed. That is the number they have to hit. If he's hitting 10 million, then Square Enix owes him stock or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, it is hard to verify that number because Square Enix put it out there, but when you go look at number of things downloaded, a lot of times you're only seeing like the PlayStation things that are downloaded for your area. Like you're seeing, okay, that's the number of PlayStation players in the US, or depending on where you're getting this data, it's really hard to know what's been counted. And I don't want to go grab, you know, the Japanese numbers and the American numbers, because for fear, what if they actually do partially overlap? I mean, what if that's all the ones that are bought through Amazon, or all the ones that I don't know where this number comes from. And the question is do you as a game developer or as a console developer, Xbox, they all seem to follow this weird arbitrary set of rules. When do you release numbers? I think it's only when it gives you credibility. And so when you have something where there's
like a milestone, like 10 million.
Yes. Is it still relevant? Well, we just hit a milestone. They wouldn't have said it if you weren't asking, are they still relevant?
Right.
The other side of that is, if they suddenly drop to 9, they're not going to publish that.
No. Well, and then you see anytime WoW went, oh, WoW's shrinking, WoW's dying, panic amongst the player base. And, you know, it's like with anything, like with any commodity, it's like, okay. And because we're actually customers and we're not traders of it, it's like, okay, well, are you having fun? Is the content there? Is it what you expect it to be? Good. But I was actually surprised, like Xbox doesn't report their numbers. What they've now started to value above sales is time spent on the platform, time spent online.
It's the number one commodity. You look at things like Facebook. What is Facebook's output? What do they actually create?
Daily active and monthly active users is what people care about.
Eyeballs.
Yeah.
That's all it's good for. YouTube, Facebook, video games. Eyeballs. 10 million players tells investors that there are a lot of eyeballs on this game, and it tells players that it's good enough for them, so it's good enough to give a shot. Here's our free trial on the link below.
There you go.
And so that's, I think, the value here. Interesting question. I don't think that they're going to give us any more than they did until the next milestone.
No, and the question is, what is it? Is it 15 million, 20 million, 100? Who knows?
And what is that unit?
Oh, I don't know, man. Yeah, like really, you know, it's exciting to see. I'm excited for them. The fact that Yoshi P, this says, is that 14, like Eve, is growing. Like every month they're bigger than they were the previous month. They don't have the same
cycles.
Exactly.
Like, WoW has cycles, and when people say it's dying, they're not usually aware that it's. If you actually understand the timeline of the game, it's at a point in the cycle where it's like, okay, progression's kind of over. We're waiting. That's when people drop off. They go play other things. They save their $15 a month, and then they come back for the next one, which translates us, thank you, Joint, into Phoenix tiers. Honestly, WoW and Final Fantasy XIV share a player base. 90% of my guild plays WoW as well.
Absolutely,
this is an incredibly controversial topic, depending on which group of players you say this in.
Exactly. So there's 11 players that came to 14, and 11, like, you know, there is this underlying, I guess, sense of like, my game's better than your game and things like that. So like, it's funny to think
you were
that
playing 11 when I was playing WoW.
Exactly, and it's funny to think that 11 and WoW, like WoW's been out for a long time.
I've been playing WoW
in fact,
since
I would
had
be
a bedtime.
I would be I would be surprised if anybody who's played 14 has not either heard or played a WoW, and then people come over and they'll go back, and there's nothing wrong with it. Again, like my personal philosophy is that at the end of the day, these are video games that we get to sit back and talk about, and we can debate which is better, which has a better community, which does certain things better, and that's great. In fact, I think as gamers we win, because if Blizzard is looking at what Final Fantasy is doing right, and if Square Enix is looking at what WoW is doing right, then they're both going like, okay, we can do our own little twist on this. We can see if we can't make it better, or we know we want to add that feature into our game in and of itself. Competition, from where I sit, usually breeds positivity for the game in and of itself.
Above board competition is nothing but a good thing.
Now, where it gets bad is that when you get the community saying like, WoW players, it's easy, it's baby, etc. And then they hate on somebody who is like, maybe they enjoy the game. You know what? If you enjoy a game, awesome. You don't need me or Chris or anybody to validate the fact that you enjoy it. Go out and enjoy it. And that's really the best thing that you can do for yourself. But I would actually agree with this. We've even talked about, and this might be controversial, we got a huge Final Fantasy base, but if we were able to do this full time, it'd be interesting to play WoW a little bit.
It would,
especially because of how much is different. To be able to offer more comparative videos, like, hey, this is what we like from WoW, and like, hey, man, you know, I wish WoW brought this in. Like, I would tell you,
EVE Online, even Guild Wars. There's so many games out there I'd love to play, but unfortunately,
I would probably, especially
I have limited time and resources, and I'm only going to pay $15 a month to one game, and I'm only going to pay, you know, I'm only going to play a game that takes this much time in one genre. I can't just play MMORPGs. I like other styles of games and I want to play those, which means that with the time I have to game, I can't pick two of those because that would just swallow up every first-person shooter, every racing game, every arcade-style game, every single-player game. I mean, it would just eat all of those alive, and then I would actually still be suboptimal on the two MMOs.
Yeah. Like, Chris, you're not caught up on anything, and your rotations on everything are just like, you know, piss poor.
Well, thanks for telling me that. I'm going to go over here and get told the same thing by my other friends.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so I think, you know, I don't know, obviously, like, you know, statistics, we can make up numbers and percentages, etc. But especially if 90%, if the majority of your free company plays WoW as well, that's awesome. You know, it gives a good, I think, perspective. I think it gives a good conversation. And as long as they're not jerks about it, then, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. There's no reason why we can't applaud somebody's success.
Yep.
It doesn't take away from our own.
The games are similar because I have friends that the only two MMOs they've ever enjoyed is this one and WoW.
Right.
So obviously there's something there that person enjoys about games that both these games have. The other side of that is I do have friends on Final Fantasy that don't play WoW. Maybe they played in the past, they feel it took a turn for something different that they didn't like, and then, you know, and they would never go back, and they don't enjoy it. And so I think it's a fine competitor. I think it's a fine game. We don't currently play it, but that's not for any real reason other than just time and money.
Right.
But great comment. It's very, very interesting because sometimes I say something and compare it to WoW, and there's people in the community that don't really like that I compare them, but I think life is about comparing all the different experiences we've had. And to say that I played a game before Final Fantasy existed, or to say that people own games outside of Final Fantasy, is very fair.
Yeah. All right, and so Seal for Protection then says, new to the game, 20 days left, 10 million club. So he's saying that, like, they're new, obviously, and still on their free trial. So he's got 20 days from the time that this comment was made.
6 days ago at the time the video was shot.
All right. Well, hopefully you're still enjoying it. And you know what? If you choose to subscribe, I think you'll be all the better for it. The game offers a lot. And my personal opinion is MMOs are the cheapest form of entertainment that exists on the market today if you participate in them. If you're not playing the game and you're subscribed, then they're not cheap. But if you are playing the game and you are subscribed, you're getting a lot of content, you're getting a lot of benefits. And, you know, dollar for dollar, playing and being subscribed to Final Fantasy XIV saves me from buying a brand new game like every other week or whatever, whenever I get paid. You know, I'm like, well, I'm subscribed, so, and I've got plenty of things to level, obviously.
Brian is well aware that I believe video games are capped at $1 per hour. That is what I am willing to pay. Beyond that, I would rather go experience things in the real world. There's a lot of places I've never been. There's a lot of things I've never done. So $1 per hour is the most I'm willing to pay for a game, which means if I pay $60 for a game for my Xbox, I have to play it 60 hours or that game was a poor purchase.
Right.
So by that theory, I have to play Final Fantasy 15 hours a month. That's it. We play, what, 3 hours every week on...
Just Wednesdays.
Wednesdays?
Yeah. And then
that almost gets me there.
And then you've been playing and leveling, fishing and stuff like that.
Leveling, I stream with you guys another probably 3 to 6 hours a week.
So
I'm easily over.
Yeah, what do you think, like your hour-to-hour rate? Because I would say that I'm probably paying about 15 cents an hour or less. You know, when you think of the hours I know that I play.
Even if I'm not willing to pay for the hours that I don't enjoy, when I get stuck on something and I'm not having fun.
Clicking this son of a gun. Oh my gosh.
I'm just doing it
Brian,
because I know that the end result puts me as a better character and it needs to be done so I can enjoy the better character stuff. I would say that I'm probably around 25 cents an hour on this game.
Yeah.
It's one of my better purchases every single month. Obviously somewhere across 2 years you have to absorb the cost of the expansion. But I think that Yeah, this is one of my better purchases. Game night games are the only ones that rival it.
Yeah.
And that's because I pay $60.
And we play for like a year.
We play for 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
And it's 3 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the only ones that really rival it. Single player games actually struggle. The idea that I would get more than 120 hours out of Zelda, that still puts it at 50 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Well, welcome. That 10 million number didn't get there by itself. It's exciting to see the game growing. We started with people, we've started some of our feedback this week talking about people who are new to the community. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And Seal for Protection, thank you so much. We're excited to see you here.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that, I think, wraps this up episode, right?
Yeah.
Well, that wraps us up for this community feedback. Thank you all for all your comments. Note that we are reading them all and we are trying to respond to each and every one as best we can. You never know when your comment's going to be featured on an episode of community feedback, and so we're going to try to be doing obviously more of these as topics and things roll out. So if there's a topic or anything that you'd like to see us talk about, be sure to tweet us at Work2Game or leave us know in the comments below, and we will try our best to get to it as soon as we can. We've got a lot of things to talk about. It's going to be a fun year, and again, we thank you all for being here. So for Work2Game, my name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Thanks for watching. YouTube has a pretty cool video waiting for you over here. Our latest vlog is down below. For those of you new, subscribe is over here. And all of our other contact info is just right below me here. Thanks for watching.
Can I press record?
I don't know.
Yeah, we got 12 seconds already.
You're rolling.
Rolling. Roll it.